Alright, another draft physics video presentation. Just a lot of videos lately. I thought there'd be less because I'm working more, but anyway, I'm busy with other stuff. Anyway, so DraftScience keeps digging his hole digger deeper and deeper, and so it's worthy of more comment and just more accusations made, and they defend nothing with anything called a piece of evidence. He's supposed to be an experimentalist, and he doesn't know that a simulation isn't an experiment. I mean, it's really pathetic. So anyway, LOL. I specifically linked to the page to the Fresnel diffraction as I knew you would fuck this up. So let's just be clear. This page has nothing on it about the double slit experiment. Okay, this page is 80% about slits. So this page is 80% double slit, right? There, slit, 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 double slit, blah, 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 slits, rectangle, slits, slits, okay? A little tiny bit about an aperture, but it's all about slits. Slit, 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 slit. And he says they're wrong. That's not the right answer. This math isn't the right math. This is wrong math. The right math is on the page that doesn't mention two slits. It's talking about a round aperture that has an X, Y, Z axis, right? So the light's spreading in different directions. See, an aperture has a couple of differences. If you have a round circle instead of a square or rectangle slit, the math has to change a little because the angles, again, it's a least. There is no true circle in real physics. So it's really just a bunch of little straight lines that make the circle, and so the diffraction, the scatter, okay, is angular on all of those little surfaces. That's when a Huygens kind of principle is in place. And the fact is it changed the factor a little bit. So it does change the math a tiny bit, but it's, again, a tiny bit. So here on his own page, right, so this is where he says, I should have known that where it says this diffraction integral and they show a picture of a circle, they're really talking about the double slit. So that's his, so he fooled me. See, I fell for it. Because, see, they're just trying to trick people who don't know real physics and make them think that, oh, this is, the double slit is a circle, when it's not. But anyway, here's the obvious, this image will basically is saying to you is that if you watch this pattern, the Fresnel approximation is only really relevant for tiny little angles. So as soon as you're over a certain, as soon as you're not doing the near field thing, the approximation turns exactly into the Fraunhofer far field approximation. See, the lines meet, they all become the same, exactly the same. That's why it's the double slit, is because, see, this is the category it fits into. So it's clearly not the right web page. It's clearly not relevant to double slits. It's clearly not the preferred mathematics. And here he is rationalizing his bullshit, making an excuse for him linking to the wrong page. A silly excuse. I mean, it's just silly. Alright, you will notice that I linked to the very specific paragraph. Yeah, a paragraph about a round aperture of the article on Fresnel diffraction. A bit where it shows a general statement. The general statement isn't about double slits. Double slit pattern is a very specific pattern. Again, the argument isn't about just any old interference pattern. It's about this very specific pattern. Okay, this very specific pattern. That's what it's about. And the fact that you can't make it with two waves, it don't work. Shit. I mean, this is just proving my point, right? These people seem like, oh yeah, I went to college and I spent years studying this stuff, and it's demonstrating they're obviously not so fucking goddamn smart. So they all know some math, and that's all they know. They really can't tie their own shoes. They really are, in many ways, functionally retarded in terms of they don't have any logic skills. And certainly don't have anything called integrity, or honesty. All right. The bit where it shows the general statement, you will also notice that the paragraph says that the equation can't be calculated analytically. Well, then what fucking good is it? It's not an analytical equation. Then what kind of equation is it? Overt bullshit? I mean, what else is math for? But then to do something analytic. That's why you put the variables in, because you're supposed to be doing something analytic. I just, too weird, too strange. Where and Fresnel diffraction diverge is in what approximations are made to change the equation to create something that can be calculated analytically. Well, again, they already conceded on the other page that it can't do the job either. So again, this is kind of strange that you say your math is so powerful, and yet both of them are conceding they can't do the job. Because the job is silly anyway. The Huygens infinite wavelet theory, that again, you can't draw it, you can't explain how it works, you can't explain how Huygens makes a round wave, and 4 round waves in the case of the double slit. Can't explain how it does it. And you certainly can't explain that the simple truth is all you have to do is calculate these distances. This is the diffraction gradient mathematics. All you have to do is have this distance, and this distance, and you're done. You can directly get to the correct pattern, and you don't need to do any of this complex integrals. You don't need any of that stuff, not any of it. So these are people who are so obsessed with derivations and simplifying equations. Here you simplified it to something where you just have to have those 2 variables and you have the answer. And you have to just be able to divide the wavelength into the distance, or vice versa. And it'll tell you exactly how many bars there's going to be. Not complicated at all. But certainly not consistent with a wave theory. Alright. Diverge is what approximations are to change the equation to create something that can be calculated analytically. Well, I don't even know what that. I should read it better, I guess. Where diffraction diverge is in what approximations are made to change the equation. So again, what approximations are made? Why do I need to approximate anything? It's 2 slits. It's not that complicated. Anyway, this is just such bullshit. To change the equation to create something that can be calculated analytically. And again, it can be calculated from just knowing the distance. How big is the impediment? How much added distance do you add with the slit? See, the trick they do is they can make the impediment bigger. So they make the blocking thing big. Oh, I draw it. I mean, it's not that much trouble. It's apparently too much trouble for the rest of the people on the internet. They can't draw anything, but I can handle it. So you can, if you want to do something sneaky, right, to screw up the math. I mean, to screw up the experiment so it can look like it's a single slit when it's a double slit. The trick is you can put a really big impediment in, like in the example, 0.25 millimeter, right? So it's 1/4 of a millimeter, which is pretty big for light. Light says that's huge, all right? And then you can put an infinitesimally small slit, right? So then obviously this widest distance is going to be essentially the same as this distance. So if you make the slits infinitesimally small, that is less than a wavelength, we're talking about less than 500 nanometers, tiny, tiny, tiny. Thousands of times thinner than this impediment. Well, then you can sort of understand how, well, it's the same pattern. And so both patterns just end up on top of each other because they're both going to be almost the same. There's no extra wavelengths of distance, right? If these little slits are less than a wavelength wide, you're not adding wavelengths to the distance, therefore you can't be adding any bars. So the bars just end up right on top of each other. And so you have one pattern, and that's all. No breaks, no interesting bits, because the 2 patterns are right on top of each other, right? But that's not how that's not how, you don't see double slits that way. And even if you did, again, that's not the point. The point is you have to explain all the circumstances. So explain the circumstance when they're equally spaced, when the impediment's the same size as the openings, because now you have twice as many, wavelengths, lambdas, here that you have here. And that means your bars are going to be twice as big. Okay, I mean twice as many. So the little bars will be half the size of the envelope pattern, right? So the envelope pattern will be that big, the bars will be that big. So then you only have like 3 bars if you do that, right? So if you do this kind of arrangement, you only get 3 bars. But, you know, all you have to do is make this a little bit wider. Okay, you make it a little bit wider, and then all of a sudden now you'll have 7 bars in that middle section. 7, you know, 7. Just pretend that's 7. You know, and then you'll have 3 over here, you know, and then 2 over here. But that's how it works. That's the simplest solution. That's the simplest way to get the right answer, is just say how many wavelengths are here, and you just multiply the number of wavelengths. Okay, you just divide the distance. You divide this distance by the wavelength of the light, and that'll tell you exactly how many bars are going to be on any circle you draw. It'll tell you how many they're going to be on this circle, this quarter. So you just double it for both sides, but I'm just saying it'll tell you exactly how many there are. How many constructive, and they're going to be equally spaced, dependent on how much remainder you have. The remainder goes here. Just remember that this distance is just about drawing 2 lines, a line from there and a line from here. And this is your distance. And so your distance could be 10.5 wavelengths. You know, and the 0.5 will be over here. And then you'll go to a full bar. And then you'll have a full bar. And a full bar. That's how it works. Show anywhere in the rational universe where that's incorrect. Okay, calculate analytically. This is not really a concern when you solve it numerically. So again, you know, this is, you're saying you solve something, you never did the experiment, you punch numbers into your own simulation and say, hey, I'm a great physicist. No, you suck at physics. You would know this if you had even the vaguest idea what you're talking about. So he's saying Wikipedia doesn't know what it's talking about. So when Wikipedia says diffraction by a double slit, and it's on the Frauenhofer page, he says that it shouldn't be there. This article should be on the other page, is what he's saying. They're stupid physicists on this page. And I'd say, yeah, they're really stupid because this is not a double slit pattern. I'd say they're really stupid to talk about 2 waves. That means they're really stupid because 2 waves can't create the complex pattern. Just a fact that they will never refute with any evidence ever, because it's a fact. Can't refute it with evidence, because all the evidence points exactly to the direction I'm saying. I'm the one that's on the side of, you know, the right answer. All right, thanks for allowing me to live in your head rent-free. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I mean, you have some really weird, is that a British thing or something? I mean, first you say I'm, or what did he say in the other comment? Something about, I'm a poem of myself. I mean, what the hell was that? Anyway, it doesn't even matter, but what the hell does that mean? Well, what the fuck does that expression mean? Thanks for allowing me to live in your head rent-free. I don't know. I presume, no, well, that's your trouble. So you assume and presume, and you do all this crap, and you do it really badly. Okay, I presume that it was you who filed a privacy claim against my channel. No, I filed one against the comment you didn't delete. So you didn't do anything about the comment, right? You're sitting there requesting that the person edit the comment. You're not even deleting the fucking comment, right? That's got my full name in it. So you don't even understand how the etiquette thing here works. So I took the matter into my own hands and I filed a complaint against the commenter. Now the fact is the comment was on your video, okay? So YouTube's good and stupid. So I guess instead of figuring out I was complaining about the comment, they figured I was complaining about the person who made the video. Not a damn thing I can do about that. And I'll bet you $10,000 I didn't file a privacy claim against your account. So do you want to take the bet? I'll bet you $10,000 that's not what I did. I filed the appropriate complaint against somebody who posted my full name against YouTube's policies. That's what I fucking did, jackass. It's not my fault if YouTube fucked it up. Alright, not a smart move, buddy. Well, what are you going to do about it, buddy? Let's say I did do it. What are you gonna do about it, buddy? Huh? Big threat? See, that's all you guys got. You're just a gang and a mob and a pile of shit. What are you gonna do, shithead? See, unlike you, I don't dig myself into their sewer. I don't go around posting anybody's name or trying to out them or post their address or talk about their family or any of that horse shit. Fuck. So I'm sorry, okay? If YouTube fucked it up, I'm sorry they fucked it up. But it's really not my fault because you didn't delete the comment, jackass. I wouldn't have had to do it if you took care of it, but you didn't. You sat there and had a conversation with a fucker who's posting my real name. And you had a conversation with the fucking asshole. Shit. God damn. Anyway, so this is a nice long comment, so we'll see. I haven't read this yet, so this ought to be fun. Oh, fuck. Keep them coming. It's rather entertaining to see you make more and more of a fool of yourself. Well, I'm making exactly the same argument to you. We've already proved you're despicable cowards. We've proven that you'll talk a good argument, but you won't actually make a good argument. You're scared shitless to make a video on any of these subjects because you're the one who's going to be outed as a fucking fool. So why don't you make a video on the radar jamming experiment and prove how it's not jamming, jackass? Why don't you show us how your Huygens principle or some other fucking bullshit you made up somehow proves that no, radios don't get jammed by sending the same exact fucking frequency out of phase to the receiver. That doesn't jam radios. Why don't you make that fucking argument, jack the fuck ass? Okay, and then on these slit experiments, why don't you in some way demonstrate how two waves, draw me two waves and show me how the two fucking waves make the pattern. That's what your web pages say. That's what Wikipedia thinks is the reality. You use the word Young's double slit 4 times in your comments. Well, why don't you explain how Young's theory works? How two waves make the double slit pattern. Lame ass. Okay. I mean, look, we already proved this, right? I mean, Baldy Cats, after weeks of me harassing him for the link, he still couldn't provide a link. He can't provide a link to a single YouTube video done right. Not a single one. And look at what they're doing. They're just doubling down. We don't have to prove it. We don't have to show it. We don't have to have evidence. I'm an experimentalist. Experiments are for sissies. We do simulations instead. I mean, pathetic. At every step of the way, you demonstrate that you are too arrogant. Same to you, fucker. I mean, man, I am rubber. You are so covered in glue. To consider the notion that you have misunderstood something. Clearly, you don't understand any of your elemental physics at all. You've just accepted all the lies they told you. They told you a bunch of little fairy stories about singularities and spooky action and, you know, little entangled particles and all these little fairy stories. And that's all they fucking are, is little fairy stories. And you fell for it. You're a fucking grown man and you're believing in a Santa Claus. You're a dupe, a religious, stupid, ignorant dupe. So fuck you. Back at you, buddy. Okay, your issue has been that the math used for the double slit experiment doesn't work. Any math that doesn't include 4-point sources can't work. Cannot possibly work. If it doesn't have 4-point sources in it, that is the distance between two distances relevant to the 4-point sources, it can't work. That's my point. However, it is clear that you haven't understood it once again. Well, fuck you. It's not clear, and you haven't made anything clear. You're the one still who hasn't posted a single link to a video, and the web page you posted to, the Wikipedia page, you're saying they're idiots because they have them mislabeled. That somehow you think a round aperture is a better description of the double slit than the page they actually called double slit diffraction. That somehow they don't know. Wikipedia scientists are really dumb. And you linked to it. Whose fault is that? You linked to a page you now say is wrong. And you're saying you're making sense? No, you're not making any sense. Nobody fair is going to say, oh yeah, he's making a really great argument. That's an insanely lame argument. Only a flat earther could talk in those many circles. You know, the page is garbage, but look, the page says I'm right. Doesn't make any sense. You will notice that the link I posted directs you to a specific paragraph. Didn't I already read this in the other comment? So he's just repeating himself. Yeah, I mean, how pathetic is this? Okay, of the article on Fresnel diffraction. Had you understood the article, then you would realize that the first equation in that section is a general statement, regardless of whether you are dealing with the near field or the far field. Well, how's it change anything? How does that make any difference? The two equations are doing essentially the same thing. They're just doing it in two abstract ways. Just as I pointed out, I can derive the answer without even going near an angle. I don't have to care about a single angle, and I can derive the right answer, right? So this is your horseshit, and you know this, right? Mathematicians know this. There's lots of different ways to get to an answer. Okay, you can do it lots of different ways. Now, I've just demonstrated that the simplest way to do it is just to say, okay, you have two distances. Okay, you have this distance, and you have this distance. And all I have to do is take this distance, okay, let's call it d, and I just divide it into, or vice versa, so I can just put lambda right into that distance. It'll tell me exactly how many wavelengths there are. Let's say there's 10.5. And then all I have to do is say, well, what's the center point? And let's have an equidistant distance. We'll say 10 feet. And I just make a circle there at 10 feet, right? So I say 10, because that's the distance. And I want to know how long this line is. And I can find out how long the line is then by just doing 10 times 1/2 pi. I get how long the line is, and let's say it's whatever, 15. Okay, we'll just make up a number. So that's how long this line is. And now all I do is put this answer, 10.5, I just divide that into the length of this line. So I just take the length of this line, okay, 15, and I just divide it by 10.5. All right, and it'll tell me how many notches to put on this. We're all done. I don't need to worry about angles. This will tell me exactly where they have to be. They'll tell me exactly where it has to start here. So the 0.5 starts here. And the rest of it is just the subdivisions, the average subdivision. So I put the 0.5 right here, and I just do the average subdivision. There, done. Not a single sine theta anywhere in sight. So fuck you. You know this. Alright, you will notice that the link I posted, okay, we already did that. The equation section is a general statement regardless of whether you're dealing with near field or far field. Well, obviously it's not the same equation, because obviously it was dealing with an XYZ, I mean at least an X and Z axis. So you can make up stories all you want, but obviously that's not the double slit experiment, and it's not likely to be math relevant to the double slit experiment. Okay, you will notice that there is a statement saying that there is no analytic solution to for this equation, which doesn't still, I can't even imagine why somebody would say that's a good thing. Did I already read this? Did I go in the wrong order? I was going up and I went down. Well, anyway, with the exception of a few simple configurations. So again, it's just silly to say, because the configuration, it's this simple. There's only 2 point sources. You're just saying they're scattered at the point sources. That's the point sources are the sources. So again, there's no other sources. Okay, your fantasy that Huygens has something to do with this, again, is a fantasy. So all the people who defend Huygens and don't know anything about it, I mean, they're all so fucking ignorant. Again, let's go over this one more time, because it's really important, I think. Huygens didn't say anything about waves getting rounded. Okay, if you had a round wave, if you started with a round wave, then Huygens says, okay, you just make a bunch of Huygens sources all across the round wave, you know, little lumpy waves. But there's an infinite number of them, so they come out straight, so that makes the next wave. So Huygens was talking about how waves move, how they propagate. He wasn't saying that you can take a flat wave and turn it into a bowed wave with Huygens. There's nothing about Huygens that says, hey, when you hit a slit, the Huygens principle clicks in. Okay, so say I have an opening here. Huygens never said, oh, the nice flat waves can come in and they're going to, when they hit the slit, they're going to do something extra Huygensy. Huygens already said all these waves were Huygens waves. These were all Huygens waves. There's no reasoning that says, hey, when I hit the slit, I go round. And again, it's not about making one round wave. That won't do you any good. One round wave won't make an interference pattern. You need two. Okay, there's no Huygens principle. They just do this. That's all they do. They make an artificial bisection. And now they have an excuse to make two waves. And if they ever drew it, they'd have to draw them here, because this is the mathematical point source. The vectors will be from these points. Fact, 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 fact. That's what's going to happen in the single slit. The vectors are always going to be on these surfaces. You can't deny it. It's the truth. If you want to get the right answer in the single slit, you do these 2 points. This surface and this surface. You don't do here and here. So again, there's no argument here. This is absolute nonsense. Huygens doesn't round waves. So this is just all bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Alright. You will notice that there is a statement saying, look, I already noticed a whole bunch of statements and I read them out loud. Like the infinite pattern statement. Like the 2 waves in the double slit. I read those statements. They're overtly nonsensical. They're overtly wrong. It's overt mush. Alright. That there is no analytic solution. So again, this is just so funny. There's no analytic solution except the easy geometry. Okay, for the equation with the exception of a few simple configurations. So I don't even know how that can make sense. All the configurations of 2 slits. There's not too many configurations. You're just moving them away from each other. You make them bigger and smaller. How can the configuration mean anything beyond the point I already made? That if you make the slits smaller than a wavelength opening, which is so tiny, then yes, the 2 patterns will fall right on top of each other. The 4 sources will create only 2 sources. Because you have 2 of the sources so close to each other, they won't make any difference. But in every other case, it does matter, you idiot. So he's almost arguing that, oh, our math works in the special case, and it never works in the general case. It doesn't work if your slits are bigger than a wavelength. A wavelength, 500 nanometers. I mean, an insanely small slit. I mean, hundreds of times smaller than a frickin' hair. Okay. This is important as this is the bit where the diffraction, is that what he said? No, the differentiation between Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction comes in. Well, no, it isn't. Okay, it's clearly, again, if you're going to argue the web page doesn't know what it is talking about, then why didn't you say that in the first place? The web page is lying. The one that says they're talking about 2 slits, no, they're not really talking about 2 slits. They're not the right math at all. I mean, this is just such a pile of shit. To get an approximation for the analytic solution, you need to make some approximations to make the integral simpler. So again, you don't need integrals. You only need an integral if you have some phony notion that there's a bunch of little waves inside of the wave and I got to do all this calculating of all those little tiny ones. And they're not going to give you a different answer. The little tiny ones are all part of the same system. So then they can't give you a different answer. It's just much simpler to realize, oh, yeah, it's the surfaces that are actually making the pattern. Oh, man. This is where the near field and far field diverge as the approximations that are accepted change. So I would argue that he's exactly got that backwards, and the paper demonstrates it. The far field and near field converge as soon as you put the screen a foot away. So you're done. However, you don't have to make these approximations when using numerical methods, and the whole thing is moot. Oh, isn't that special? So you posted a link to something that was moot as an argument when I'm saying post me a link to some kind of rational description of the 2-slit experiment. Some sort of evidence that 2 waves are making this stupid idiotic pattern. Some demonstration that wave theory works, that the wave centers will be in the right places. like in the middle of the opening where they're supposed to be, where we would think wave centers should be. Show me how that makes any sense, and you can't. And so you're just doing this word crap. You're just talking shit. All right, anyway, using numerical method, the only thing that really matters is the number of points you use. Duh. And you only need 4, because that's the only places the pattern's being created from are those 4 point sources. The surfaces. The surfaces are the only relevant part of the pattern. They're creating the pattern. There's no pattern without the surfaces. The light that went through the middle, it didn't move, didn't bend, didn't scatter. The light that goes by the surfaces scatters. Newsflash, that's the real physics. Okay, for the result I linked, I treated the aperture as 1,000,000 point sources. So why would you do that? And there's not one aperture. So again, what sense does that even make? Right? He says the word aperture. Right? That's what it said, right? Aperture. I treated the apertures, okay, as 1,000,000 point sources. So he has a 1,000,000 little imaginary Huygenses in between the 2 slits. And again, all I'm arguing is it's completely a waste of time. You don't need to have 1,000,000 point sources, because in the end, the only ones that are relevant are the ones where the surfaces are. These are the only places that matter. So he's saying if I put 1,000,000 little things here and then do the math for all these millions of points, that somehow I'll get a different answer than if I just put this point, this point, this point, and this point. He's saying overtly that this gives you the real answer, doing this, and this will give you the wrong answer. So even though the other web page says this will give you the right answer, this is the winning formula, he's saying no, it isn't. You have to do this 1,000,000 point source crap in the middle. And I'm clearly arguing all of this will give you nothing. It'll tell you exactly what these distances are, and that's all. And that's all you need to know. All you need to know is this distance and this distance, and in the case of a diffraction gradient, this distance, and then this distance, and then this distance. And that's all you need to know. All right. 1,000,000 point sources. Probably excessive, but fuck it. Well, why don't you do it with 3 then? Right? You don't really need 1,000,000 to illustrate your point, because your math is somehow superior. So just show how you'll get a different answer when you use 4 point sources. Okay? The 2 outside surfaces, the 2 inside surfaces. So show me how you get a different answer if I just use these 2 interior ones to define the envelope, and I use these 2 exterior ones to define the small pattern. Show me how you'll get a different answer with your math. Okay. Probably excessive, but fuck it, my machine can handle it. Oh, your special machine. Despite your protestations that it is the result that we observe, that is the result we observe. So again, he just said it. Okay, despite your protestations, that is the result we observe. So where's your proof of that? Show me the experimental evidence. Show me somebody who did the experiment, used your math, measured it on the wall, and found your answer. And of course, if they're measuring on a wall, it's going to be distorted, so they're already going to be fucked, because the math doesn't know that it has to distort the pattern with distance. So if I ask them what the 7th fringe looks like, they'll get the wrong answer because they're looking at a flat screen. So I'm guaranteed to be right that they're wrong, because they can't even figure out they shouldn't be projecting it on a flat screen. I mean, you people are just so fucking full of shit. Anyway, you tried to dismiss it by claiming that it's just me. I'm claiming that your simulation is horseshit. Prove it. And prove your answer will be any different than the answer I provided in 14 seconds worth of work. Or, 48 seconds. In 48 seconds, I can derive the result. I can tell you how many bars there'll be, okay, in the 90-degree angle. And I don't care how far away you go, there's still going to be the same number of bars. It's never going to matter. So I'll tell you exactly how many bars will fit on that line. And I'll do it in less than a minute. You go ahead and do your little integrals with your little Huygens magic. and we'll see. But you don't, again, he says he's an experimentalist. He clearly doesn't give a fuck about experimental proof. All right. You try to dismiss it by claiming that it's just me saying so. Well, that's all it is. I'm begging for the answers. I'm begging for the proof. I'm begging to see the evidence, and you're not going to show me shit. You direct me to the wrong web page, explicitly a page you say is incorrect. Okay, because clearly it doesn't know it's talking about double slit diffraction. It mislabeled the math completely. Anyway, but you know full well it's the correct result. So just more of this crap where somebody says that kind of shit, like you know full well, and when we know, no, I don't know that full well at all. I think your Huygens horseshit is a fantasy, a fable. It's a silly talking fish story. It has nothing to do with reality, and it has nothing to do with Huygens, frankly. Again, show me where Huygens said that you make two waves in the single slit when you use Huygens. Show me where Huygens said, yeah, my principle says that when one wave goes in, two waves come out. Show me where Huygens said that. All right, you have drawn it out yourself on several occasions. So isn't this bizarre? I haven't drawn out any Huygens crap. I didn't use 1,000,000 point sources anywhere, idiot. Where did I draw 1,000,000 point sources? Well, yeah, that's right, I didn't do that, liar. And claim that it is the pattern that we observe, but you claim that the math doesn't describe it. No, I claim exactly the opposite. I claim that the math that does exactly what I just described, which is use the 4 point sources, gets the right answer. And the ones that doesn't use 4 point sources gets the wrong answer. It's a 4-wave pattern. It's not a 2-wave pattern. And quite frankly, the waves are in the wrong place to be real waves. So they have to be considered just scatter points. Because again, where are you refuting this simple logic? Okay, in the single slit, okay, your mathematics says the waves are here and here. Here's the wave centers. So somehow waves go in this way, and somehow they create a wave half over the surface and half into the empty space. And that's where the wave center is. Bullshit. Okay? Then in the double slit, you say, okay, that the point sources, the wave centers, are here, 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 and here. The 4 waves would look like this. Alright, and who but an imbecile would think waves could go right through the slit, and right through this wall, and right through this wall. This is a wall here. This is a wall here. How can the waves start halfway over the wall? Wave theory doesn't work. Clearly. It's incoherent. All right. Yourself on several occasions that the math doesn't describe it. So again, that's just he just keeps lying, right? This is where they can't paraphrase anything correctly. I have said overtly, if the math that does the multi-slit, the any n math, works just fine. And in the single slit, there's 2 point sources. In the double slit, there's 4 point sources, right? In the triple slit, there would be, whatever it is, 6 point sources. In the fourfold slit, there would be 8. And on and on and on and on. Okay, at 3222, I mean, it's right in the math. There's a little n. And they go n times. N times, n times, n times. N times the distance, because you're just multiplying the distance of the slit. With each surface, you just double the distance of one slit. So you're just multiplying it by the distance of one slit. Alright, treating the 2 edges as the only sources of light. Okay, here we go. At 3222, you demonstrate once again that you don't understand the principles involved. Right, I'm demonstrating that you can't produce any fucking argument at all. You can't draw it. You can't show somebody doing the math. You can't show somebody measuring the pattern. You can't do anything. You produce absolutely zero evidence of any of your theory. Not a single bit of it. You don't show how a Huygens works. You don't show how it makes round waves. You don't show how the four waves make sense in the locations they are. Nothing. Absolutely zero. All right. All you say is Young's double slit experiment. And we know, the facts are, Young drew two waves. He had no clue. All right. Treating the two edges as the only sources of light is only sufficient for finding out where the bright and dark spots are. Duh the fuck out. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do but figure out where the bright and dark spots are. Is there something else involved? Where the whole point of the experiment is to look at the pattern, right? And the pattern is made of places there are photons and places, whoops, no photon there, and where there aren't. And that's all there is. So there's just an intensity of the light. Okay, there's brighter light there, a little less light here, a little less here, a little less here, a little less here, but not dramatically, but yeah, a little less. Okay, and so all there is the intensity of the brightness of the spots. You know, are the squares, you know, let's be real. I mean, it's often just very clear rectangles. You know, not something gradually coming on and gradually turning off like they think. Waves go gradually on and gradually off. The pattern doesn't go gradually on and gradually off. So more horse shit. I mean, another part of their incoherent, inconsistent, perfect theory. Their garbage theory. They're nail in the coffin evidence that absolutely is a plastic nail. It's a piece of crap. All right, so where was I? So he just says, I mean, how can this make any sense to anybody? Yeah, all we want to know is where are the light spots and where are the dark spots. That's there's nothing else to know in this experiment. There's no other thing happening. It's not washing dishes over here. It's not, you know, looking for positrons over here. You know, it's not walking the neutrino over here. There's nothing else going on in the experiment but the goddamn fucking pattern, retard. That's all there is to explain. This needs to be explained. The thing is, if somebody says, what's causing that? Right? And the thing you do is you say, well, you see there's this scatter happening and a bunch of, you know, I could use the rabbit example again. If I threw a bunch of rabbits, you could kind of get it, right? The legs fly off and go over here, and then a head flies off and goes over there. And over here, the rabbit, you know, legs are flying off, heads are flying off. And where the heads and the legs are in the right order, you know, where they show up in the right order, you know, head, legs, butt, you see a photon. And where they're not in the right order, no photon. But that's all you're trying to do. You're trying to explain what causes this. And the simple answer is light is a composite object. Pieces of it scatter on these surfaces. The scattered pieces hit everywhere. And the places where they're in phase, you make a new photon. The places where they're not in phase, you don't make a new photon. Done. Mystery solved. Let's give it to the jury, right? And if there was an honest jury in this country, like if there were a few honest people you could put together, they have no reason not to say, ooh, good explanation. That makes sense. That Huygens shit didn't make any sense at all. So yeah, that makes sense though. I get that. Alright, anyway. Treating the two edges as the only sources of light is only sufficient for finding out where the bright and dark spots are. Isn't that just so funny? What else am I trying to figure out? Except the bright and dark spots. I don't know. It's just a hilarious sentence. I could just read that all day, right? I mean, treating the two edges as the only sources of light, well, they're the only sources of scatter. So they're not the only sources of light. They're only the sources of fringes. See, the rest of the light went straight through the slit. The rest of the light's going straight through the opening. It's only the light that's near the surfaces that's getting bent. Oh, man. Only sources of light is only sufficient for finding out where the bright and dark spots are. it's hilarious. It's not sufficient to describe the whole diffraction pattern. Well, what other part of the pattern is there? Besides the bright and dark spots, what's the rest of the pattern? I'm just so damn curious to know. I didn't know there was more happening. So besides the bright and dark spots, he says there's more stuff happening. Maybe he still even thinks that the pattern goes infinitely in this direction and infinitely in this direction. Maybe he still thinks that. I mean, maybe he hasn't even gotten the flat plane argument, you know, that this pattern is a point source pattern. All point source patterns are circular. Okay, and now that looks like a wave, right? But it's not really a wave. It just means that it's equidistant. Okay, but it's not a wave. Just like the Earth's orbit isn't a wave. It's a force always hitting in straight lines. And it keeps knocking the Earth down, and there's straight line vectors of force. You know, there's no waves. Now, the Earth's orbit looks round, it looks wavy, but it's not a wave. But anyway, what else is there in this pattern? I mean, he says there's something else in this pattern. So maybe he believes, like I said, that the pattern goes infinitely, and so there's more to know, because it might be doing something really cool a bazillion miles down that way. So if I go a bazillion miles that way, I'll find some new pattern. Yeah, that's what he believes, I guess. He doesn't understand that, no, the pattern is made on this arc, and the bars are always proportionally sized. So if the line's that big, then the bars are that big. And if the line is that big, then the bars are just this big. Yeah. Yeah. So the longer you make the radius, okay, the bigger you make the circumference, the larger you make the spots. But what else is there? Is there anything else to know? No, there really isn't. I'm sure there really isn't anything else to know. Okay. To do that, you need to treat every infinitesimal length element in the aperture as a point source. So this is just more bullshit. You don't need to do it at all. It's superfluous. You'll get it. You won't get the. I don't say you'll get the wrong answer, but I'm saying, unless you're doing it, unless you have a catch in it somewhere, where you're recognizing. See, you can't just do. You can't do it this way. So there are ways of doing it wrong, right? So if you were to look at the two slit, and you did the point source from here to here, and you did this distance. Or you did this distance, right? The distance from here to this side of the slit. And then the distance from here to this side of the slit. You're not going to get the right answer. You really do have to understand that the two interior, the smallest distance is creating the biggest pattern. And the largest distance is creating the smallest pattern. You really do have to know that difference. Or you'll fuck it up. Alright. To that, you need to treat every infinitesimal length element in the aperture as a point source, as I did. No, you don't. That's just horse shit. Prove it. You won't prove it with an experiment. You won't prove it with a drawing. You'll just say, I put it into my simulation. I mean, what the fuck? You know. It's just amazing. You know, there's a joke somebody made, you know, whatever, strong men in their mighty simulations or something, you know, just making fun of this whole idea that you people really don't know how to fight anything real or to deal with anything real. I did in the case of the double slit calculations, as I did in the case of the double slit calculation. So he synthesized an outcome to the experiment and said, see? And that's just absolute bullshit. You haven't explained mechanically how that works. You didn't explain what your math actually did. You didn't even show us the equation you used to synthesize that horse shit. And I bet somewhere in the equation is this distance and this distance. And I think if you don't have those distances, your equation won't work at all. So doing your little million Huygenses is completely irrelevant if you're not doing it within the confinement of these distances, and those distances are really just deciding which ones are relevant. It could be argued that all the stuff in the middle just cancels out, and all you're left with are the 2 point sources. Alright, this is the second time I have explained it to you now. There will not be a third. So again, we already know you're a pussy, a weasel, a coward. This wasn't complicated. You talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. You couldn't produce a video by reputation. That is, you don't know of a single YouTube video that explains the two-slit experiment correctly. You don't know of a single fucking one that does it. And yet I'm the bad guy. Your physics isn't corrupt. Your physics isn't broken. Your physics isn't complete horseshit. This is your counterstone of all of your woo physics, okay? No entanglement, no superposition, no many worlds, no any of that horseshit exists. And it only exists because you can't get this answer right, okay? It's only through this two-slit mystery that you created all this superposition nonsense. And you can't prove it. You can't show somebody proving it, demonstrating how it does actually work. You can't produce the video. You can't stand by the video. You can't make the video. You can't in any way, all right, provide me the simple show me evidence. Instead, what do? You say, well, I calculated in my simulator. What more do you need? I need a lot more than that. Yeah, a lot more. So, fuck this. I just hope he does try to make a video that isn't on flat earth. Do a physics video so I can tear it a new asshole. Because you're obviously full of shit. You obviously don't give a fuck about the truth. And you're obviously just preaching out of a Bible you never really read. You don't even understand your own fucking physics. Again, you still can't explain to me how polarization of light could be this big. And an electron could be this big. And somehow this whole big giant thing only hits this electron and bounces off of it. Go ahead and try to explain how that's possible. Alright, if it helps, I can tell you that this was not the first or second time it was explained to him. So again, anybody watching this video has any character, any honesty, anything. Do you really think he explained anything? He didn't illustrate anything. He didn't show us a single piece of geometry. He didn't show us a single vector going anywhere. He didn't show us in any way whatsoever how you get this double slit pattern without doing exactly what I showed. He is proof that reading does not equal comprehension. So again, more just horseshit. He's proof that it doesn't matter, right? I mean, you show overtly, okay, the web page that says this is the stuff that's talking about the double slit. Of course, again, let me just point out, they don't show you a double slit pattern on the page that's supposed to be about the double slit. Clearly, right there, everybody should just be saying, what the fuck? We know that's not the pattern. Why are you showing that on the Wikipedia page? How is this respecting your cornerstone evidence? It's overtly nonsense. It's a lie. It's obviously misleading. That's the best that can be said about it. It's horribly misleading. And you don't care. You don't fix it. You write snarky comments on my videos, but you don't tell them to fix that. That fraud. Right? And he says this is the real page of the double slit. Doesn't say double slit anywhere in here. It's about a fucking aperture. Nothing about the double slit. Except here, you know, where the two patterns match exactly. You know, where the two mathematical approaches get exactly the same answer. So, just more horseshit. Horseshit, horseshit, horseshit. Again, they have the z-axis in here. There's no z-axis in axis in you know, the double slit. They're just more horseshit. Horseshit after horseshit after horseshit. So anyway, no real point. Sad and tragic. See, this is, you can sort of get it. You know, this is the near field. This is the going in diffraction. That's why it creates that different pattern, and that's why you get the Argo spot. You know, it's because the rings are being made in all of the locations, but you can't see them because they're so slight. And the reason why you see the little tiny spot is because all the light hits one pixel. Every single photon coming from all the different vectors land on exactly the same point. And that's why you see light there, because it doesn't hit a whole bunch of atoms. It just hits a tiny little pile of atoms. So it makes a spot of light. But anyway, these people, they have no clue. Their physics is garbage. Wave theory is nonsense. Blah, 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 blah. So right here, you know, wavelength into 2 pi. 2 pi is the circumference of a circle. obviously talking about an aperture. Anyway, no point. Pathetically clueless fucks. And so dishonest, as pointed out again. Alright. And so, I guess that's enough. It was too irritating. Some asshole asking me about a different channel. Let's see. You should spend the little time you have left in constructing your own channel and not waste in hating on others, man. Yeah, well, you should go fuck yourself. Yeah, until dead. I think it'd be really good for you. Go ahead and go for it. Asshole. Yeah, we shouldn't hate assholes. Assholes are so special. So show me evidence, real asshole, no doubt. Ever wonder why the only people who buy your claims are those who don't understand basic calculus? So here we go again into this whole realm. You don't need basic calculus to understand basic vectors. Again, this whole experiment could be understood by just a string, okay? So this asshole who thinks, oh, I need calculus, I need to do all this. No, you really don't. All you need to do is, take the 2 point sources, tie a string between them that's loose, right, for the single slit. Okay, that's all. Just tie a string to the 2 point sources and then just put notches in it. Put notches in the string. Okay? And as you move the string, right, and the notches are on the notch here. And as you move the string, it'll move in an arc from this center. It'll move in an arc from this center. The two lines will change. As you go this way, this line gets longer and this line gets a lot longer. That kind of thing. And so the string will move and the notches will change. And every place there's a notch, okay, as the notches switch, so as you move your string, the notches will go up on a notch, 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 notch. And it'll tell you exactly where the little bars will be. Exactly. What do I need calculus for? Where the fuck do I need calculus to do this single slit experiment? It's so fucking simple and so fucking obvious. And the reason why, there's that big middle spot is because the straight lines, this is the 0 degrees. This is 0 degrees. In here is a negative degrees. Okay, this is a negative angle where they match. So that's completely artificial. This is where the pattern starts. This is where the pattern starts. So these are these are the two nodes, the two first fringes start here. And the light that goes through here fills in this spot here. But you're too stupid to even know that. Because you're really fucking dumb. And then when you do the reason why you don't see it in the small bar pattern, right? The reason why the small bar pattern doesn't do this big thing and then little thing, little thing, little thing, little thing, is because the small bar pattern is a lot of wavelengths. It's a much larger distance. So there's a lot of wavelengths in it. So the sizes of the fringes get smaller and smaller, okay? And this middle distance becomes bigger and bigger relative to the size of the fringes. So you can understand that the fringes will end up looking, the middle one might be a tiny bit bigger, but it won't be nearly 2. And so it will just look like another spot. So you won't notice, okay, that because of the difference between the millimeter that the whole experiment is in, okay, this whole piece is in a tiny millimeter on the screen. This whole center maxima is in a tiny location on the screen. And the smaller I make the bars, the bigger that gets relative to the size of the bar, so you can sort of understand that it just sort of disappears eventually. But anyway, you're just really, really stupid. Fuck you. You proved nothing. No links to any video. So again, any of these obnoxious assholes, you think I'm wrong, post a link to the video that's right. Is that asking too much? You say I'm wrong. Shouldn't you be willing to post a link to the video you say is right? So post me a link to the video that explains the double slit without making horrific mistakes that I can point out with, one piece of chalk tied behind my back. Show me you're not afraid for me to scrutinize what you say is good physics. Show me your good physics. Show me your pristine logic. Show me. But none of you cowards will ever do that, because you're cowards. Lame, weak cowards that just talk shit but produce nothing. Alright. And I've essentially proven AB science, just one of that crowd. Lame coward. Talks the big shit talk, walks no walk. No guts, and just a rotten human being, really. Quite disgraceful, a disgraceful human being, disgraceful. So, till the next time and such.